Game over, man. Game over.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the InSession Film Podcast.
Oh, welcome to episode 644 for July 3rd, 2025, and I'm Jaded Duran.
And I'm Brendan Cassidy.
Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody. We hope everyone had a great holiday weekend, taking some time off, maybe grilling some hamburgers and hot dogs. However
Steak.
you do
Steak.
the holiday. Yeah, good old steak.
Get a
Absolutely.
filet mignon on there. I am a happy man.
Maybe get weird, put some green beans on the grill with corn on the cob and coleslaw. Just mix it all together and
Get even
throw it
weirder.
on the grill.
How about some green eggs and ham? How about that?
Some green, there you go. Exactly. Little green eggs and ham. That's what I like to eat for the 4th
Because
of July.
we know that everyone likes to read some Dr. Seuss on the 4th of July.
Exactly. All right. Well, it is that time of the year. It is hard to believe 2025 is half over. The year is donezo. It's over.
The year is all done.
No,
So
year's not done.
these are the best movies of the year.
These are the
We're gonna
best
talk about.
movies. Exactly. It's 2020 all over again. Just prepare yourself. No, yeah, it's half over already. It's crazy. This last month has been really fun because we've been doing a lot of best of conversations, whether it be best of the decade so far, and there were a few lists that we did leading up to best movies of the decade so far.
Yeah.
We did best movies of the century last week on the show, which was wild.
Lots of
That
celebration
was a lot of
happening.
fun.
Yeah.
And now leading up to this, best movies of 2025 so far. As we get into it, Brendan, what are your thoughts on the year of our Lord 2025? And I mean, as it relates to film,
Yeah.
I have a lot of other thoughts on the year outside of film, but as it relates to movies,
We'll talk about film only on this film podcast.
yes. What do you think? Good year?
That's a hard question. That really is, because maybe you can help me articulate what I'm feeling,
Okay.
or at least you can help maybe dissect why I feel the way I do.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the films I've seen in 2025 so far, and full disclosure, we haven't seen everything like every year. Sometimes we have to make some sacrifices. There are a good chunk of films that some of our colleagues and even some of our writers over at InSessionFilm.com have seen during the festival circuit that aren't even out yet, right?
Yes.
So we can only comment on what has been physically released thus far.
Mhm.
And at this point, I've seen just over 50 movies so far this year, which is not bad. It's not bad. Usually I'm a little bit above that, but I still think that's enough to gauge how the year is going. And I'm looking at my list as far as how I'm ranking the films I've seen thus far. I have a lot of films that I've given up to a 4 out of 5 for this year. So from a mathematical and rating standpoint, I've been giving a lot of very high marks to a lot of films this year. But for some reason, I want to say it hasn't been that great of a year for film. I don't know why. And maybe you can help me dissect why that is. But unlike previous years, when we've done mid-year reports for, let's say, 2022, 2023, 2024, I don't think those years were all that different as far as the spread of quality. I think it's still very similar to those previous mid-year reports. But for some reason, those years gave me a lot of hope for what the rest of the year could look like, what the rest of cinema could look like that year. Maybe that's what it is, because 2025 isn't giving me that same level of excitement as to what the year has in store for us in the back half. And maybe it's because I just don't know enough of what's coming out, even though I do know of some that I'm still very much anticipating. There's a lot to be excited about, but it feels like it's shaping up to be one of those film years that could be very top heavy, could have a very easy consensus on where things are going. It doesn't quite feel as predictive as previous years, I guess. And that's the thing I keep toying with, because I think the quality is technically there, but for some reason the excitement isn't. And that's why that's what I'm trying to wrestle with here.
No, I am kind of with you. I wasn't exactly sure where this conversation was going to go, but I was prepared to maybe have some disparity here because I'll be perfectly honest. I think this year has been kind of middling to this point. Now, the films we're going to talk about, because we're going to be revealing our top 5 of the year so far, obviously love these movies. Really love my 5. I have a 6, 7. My top 10 at this point, I do really love. I think after that, there are some good movies for sure. But I think a lot of what comes after that probably won't be near my top 30 or 40 at the end of the year if I had to guess. I could be wrong.
Yeah. That's a good way of putting
it.
Yeah.
I don't know how I'll feel about 2025 on the whole if I'm wrong. I hope that any of the films, and I do really like some of these films, do not get me wrong. But if a film like Predator, Killer of Killers, and I'm just speaking for me personally, if that ends up, let's say, at my 22, I don't think 2025 is going to be the best year for cinema ever. Let's just put it that way.
Which I did catch up with just in time for this episode. It's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool movie.
Yeah, look, I really like it a lot. Those first 2 segments I think are especially great.
The second one is my favorite because that's the one that that's the one that really feels like a movie.
It's really fantastic. I agree. The third one was really disappointing to me. It was fine. I enjoyed it, but there was something about, and maybe I'm just too into that world.
I was going to say, is that just because JD loves planes?
Well, not just the dogfighting aspect of it all, but World War II, that era of history, I know really well. And the film outside of the alien aspect of it, like the World War II of it all, was not all that great. So, I thought it was fine. Excuse me. I thought it was fine. It just was easily my least favorite of the 3. And
I would
agree.
agree.
All of that to say, I like the film. I do really like it a lot. I think I give it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I enjoyed the hell out of it. But I don't think it's one of the best movies of the year so far. And I don't expect that it'll end up in my top 40 at the end of the year. There's a lot of 3.5 stars for me this year.
A lot of good to very good, but not a lot of very good to great.
And while I don't typically see a lot of really bad movies for me to grade 1, 2 stars all of the time, you look at my ratings on Letterboxd, it might be a little bit skewed because I don't see everything. I don't have time to see everything. So the movies that are getting absolutely panned, I tend to avoid just because I don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah.
So with that said, I think I have way more half star, 1 star, 2 star, like that. I have way more of those than I usually ever do in the first 6 months of a year.
My bottom 5 for this year is some of the most egregious stuff I think I've seen during the InSession Film era. So if we're going to talk about how top heavy a year can be, maybe this year is also quite top heavy in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Right.
And I
guess
think
bottom heavy is the way to put it.
Like I was going through everything that I've seen this year. And again, my top 10, I love. I expect these films to fight for a spot on my year-end list in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not the top 10, perhaps the top 20, top 30. I do expect them to be in the conversation. And outside of that, again, I was going through a bunch of these and I'm like, okay, good, fine, good. That's okay. That's terrible. That's terrible. That's okay. Like there was a lot of that as I was going through every single film from the first half of the year. So which I feel like is usually not the case by the time we get to this point, at least in the last 2 years, especially. I was looking at my top 10 going, holy Lord, there's no way half of my top 10 is going to be out of my top 10 at the end of the year. Like that's how high I was on those films at that time. So while we've seen some great films this year, for sure, hands down, And to your point earlier, I don't go to the festivals. I got 2 young children. That's just never going to happen for me right now. So I haven't been to any of the festivals. I can't speak to any of the festival films. I can only speak to what's been released. And to this point, it's okay. It's okay. If anything, it leaves me really excited for the back half of the year because I think there's just so much else that we're going to get.
Well, this is also a year that gave us Oz Perkins is the Monkey. So I guess that automatically makes it one of the worst years for film ever made. So
I will say this at the risk of sounding hyperbolic. I don't know if this is hyperbole. I think Minecraft is the worst film I've seen in the InSession Film era.
You want to hear a hot take, Shady? I kind of like it. I kind of like it. I had fun with it.
It is egregious. Like, it's not even a movie. It's not. It's just a series of images.
It is.
There's no script. There's no story. I mean, maybe it's because I don't play Minecraft.
I don't either.
I'm willing to admit.
I don't either. I have no connection.
I don't even know how
Minecraft
you qualify that as a movie. It blows my mind that film made money. Blows my mind.
It made me laugh. That's all I can say.
Oh, I couldn't muster even a chuckle.
It made me laugh. Jack Black is my comedic spirit animal. I think it's more him than it is the movie. I will say this, when it comes to video game adaptations that feature Jack Black musical numbers, I will definitely take that movie over the Super Mario Brothers movie any day.
Oh, I mean, I don't love the Super Mario Brothers movie, but I think it is better than, at least there's a movie there. It might not be great,
boring one.
It might not be great, but at least there's a seamlessness to it.
A boring one.
Minecraft, there's no story structure. There's no story at all. Like, it is the worst thing I've ever seen. It is so bad.
Let me say this. It's not in my top 20 or anything like that. I'm not going to be batting for it in that way, but I did laugh. I got enough chuckles out of it.
I mean, I love Jack Black. I do. That wasn't it. That was nope, no siree.
Did you watch that with Sam at all?
I did, yeah.
Did he like it?
I honestly, I don't know. He didn't laugh as much throughout the film.
Okay.
I don't know. Honestly, I was so disengaged that as soon as it was done, I pretty much walked away. Like, I was just like, if you enjoyed that, you can sit in that. I like, if I was in a theater, I would have walked out 100%.
It does overstay its welcome. I think it should have been like 45 minutes as opposed to 90 minutes or whatever the hell it was. But yeah, I got a chuckle. I got a few chuckles out of it. I guess I'm the lone critic on that one that actually didn't hate it.
I have never felt the wave of bleakness that I felt about the state of cinema as I did when watching that movie. That movie making $1 billion or whatever it's done. I know it's done really well, meaning that we're going to reward that and we're probably going to get more of those. I have never felt a bleakness as I did when watching that movie.
Well, it's better than having the Electric State have that kind of success.
That's another one. That one's also not good.
Not great, Bob.
Also not good. No, but I would take it 100 times over Minecraft. 100 times.
All right.
100 times over Minecraft.
You have fun with that.
I'm not going to have fun with either. Not going to have fun with either. I think they're both egregious.
Should we just talk about good movies?
At any rate, yeah, it's interesting because we tend to avoid a lot of those movies, so we don't really get cynical like that often on the show.
We don't. No, it's very rare for us, and sometimes we just like to waft in it.
Yeah. So at any rate, and we didn't review Minecraft, I don't believe.
I don't think we did.
So there it is. Our review of Minecraft.
There's our mini review of Minecraft. We can splice this out and just put that as a separate video out on YouTube.
Yeah. Worst movie of the InSession Film era. That's how I feel about it. All right. Anything else? Any other table setting that we need to do here?
I did want to ask you this. Were there any glaring blind spots that you had that you just didn't get a chance to watch before this one?
Oh, man. I mean, I'm sure there are, especially if we're considering the festival circuit.
I guess maybe minus the festival circuit, because some of those we just don't have access to yet. I'm saying, so things like for instance, I haven't seen the film Vietnam yet, so that's a blind spot for me, which I've heard great things about. The Wedding Banquet, which I've heard some very good things about, the new film from Andruan. I know it didn't get great reviews, but I was very curious about The Legend of Ochi, the A24 fantasy film, which I haven't seen yet. Admittedly,
wasn't that on your most anticipated list?
It was, and then all of a sudden it started getting very middling reviews, and it not to say that I trust reviews, but it was getting middling reviews from people that I tend to put a lot of stock in, at least opinions that I have a lot of respect for. So it forced me to basically prioritize other things, and I just haven't gotten to it yet.
Yeah. The only films I can think of at this point is The Ugly Stepsister. Heard really great things about that.
That's a good one. I forgot about that. Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
The Ballad of Wallace Island, I would have liked to have seen by the time we did this.
It's good. It's good.
Haven't got to that yet. Woman in the Yard, have heard good things about. Haven't seen that one yet. The film Sister Midnight got great reviews, but haven't seen that one to this point. Let's see here. On Swift Horses, I haven't seen. Sorry Baby, which was making the rounds, at least in some cities. I don't think it's come to me quite yet. At least
I don't think I have it yet either. Honestly, I was going to say if that one came to both of us, I would have suggested we review that instead of Jurassic World Rebirth.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So, like off the cuff, I'd say those are the big ones that I've missed that I'd really like to see. And I'm sure there's some foreign indie gems that I am also forgetting here
That's a great point.
I just haven't seen.
I'm looking at my list right now. I don't have many foreign films on here. I think I only have one foreign film in my top 10.
Yeah, I need to seek out more of them for sure. But, it's been such a busy year. We had the Best Picture series early on. I've been doing a lot of homework for our 1999 retrospective coming up here in a few months. So I haven't really sought out a lot of new films other than the ones that we've been prioritizing for reviews here on the show. Outside of that, I feel like I've just been watching a lot of other things. But as always, that tends to be somewhat of the case in the first half. Once we get through the rest of the summer, and especially once we get done with the 99 retrospective, I will shift completely into 2025 and I'll be doing a bunch of homework and catch up at that point. So
same here.
All right, with all of that said, let's go ahead and jump into this, our top 5 movies of the year so far. I know it hasn't felt like it, but we're going to be celebratory for the rest of this conversation.
Like JD said, we don't get cynical on this podcast that often.
Really
so when it does happen, when we get a chance to, we sometimes like to waft in it.
I know, but again, and sorry to get down this rabbit hole one more time, I think it just kind of speaks to this year and maybe why I feel a little distant from the year to this point, because outside of the films we're about to talk to, like I feel like even with some of the big films over the last few weeks, like I haven't fallen in love with anything, like outside of one. I'll talk about one here in a moment, but I didn't love Mission Impossible, right? I didn't even see Final Destination. What was it? Ballerina, like, again, good, maybe not great. The Life of Chuck, I liked, didn't love. How to Train Your Dragon, huge disappointment. Materialist, I had a few things with. F1, didn't really like all that much.
Elio,
big disappointment. So, like, I guess we'll see. I am hoping that Superman.
That's a good point. There were a lot of disappointments. Maybe that's why I've been feeling a little bit distant from this year, because there's a lot that we were anticipating. And when I'm looking at my list, at least my favorites of the year so far, a lot of them were surprises.
Yeah. And that's it. There's been some really great surprises for sure. Some wonderful surprises. But yeah, a lot of the big movies, it is what it is, and even some of the films I've been really looking forward to. Like I was really looking forward to The Life of Chuck. I thought that would be a film that would crush me, and it just didn't.
Yeah.
It just didn't.
I was so curious to hear your thoughts on that one after I got out of the theater, and I knew you were gonna like it more than I did, more than myself and Ryan McQuaid, who guested on that episode with me. But it sounds like it still didn't fully crush you like you were expecting.
No, I mean, honestly, I think I give it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd, and at least half a star there was for the score. I thought the score was really good.
Did a lot of heavy lifting. Yeah.
Did a lot of heavy lifting, but there is such a huge disconnect from the first act to the rest of the film that doesn't really justify much of what we see there. And I didn't find the experience nearly as profound as I hoped it would be.
As life affirming as the plot synopsis likes to say it is.
Yeah. I mean, I felt it a little bit, which is why I may be a little bit higher than you and Ryan, but I don't think that it fully gets there.
I'm with you there.
I understand it intellectually. Maybe that's the better way to phrase it, but I didn't feel it as much as I wanted to.
But it's a movie that's begging you to feel it as well. That's the thing.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I wanted to though. I really wanted to. But that's been a lot of the experience this year. Just I have felt more deflation this year than I typically do to this point. And I think that's perhaps what's causing me to feel this way on the whole.
Well, I think the other thing that's going to maybe justify our hunches as to why 2025 isn't as great of a year when compared to other years thus far is that when we start revealing our top 5, I'm looking at my top 5 right now. I think we're going to have a lot of crossover. And I think it's going to prove how top heavy this year actually is, at least for us.
I think you're right. Yeah, at least for us. Yeah.
I'm going to predict it. I'm going to predict it right now, JD. We have 4 crossover.
4?
Yeah.
You might be right. You very much might be right. Yeah.
You said that with like a little tinge of surprise, and then you had to study it a little bit. You're like, nah, that's actually not that surprising.
I think he's right. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. No, I think you're onto something there. All right, Brennan, let's talk about coffee.
Just the word makes me happy.
Yeah. I mean, we all just celebrated over the weekend. Well, maybe not celebrated. We had 3 days off of work, which is fantastic. But usually there's a lot of fun shenanigans going on. You're out grilling, spending time with family. If you're like us, we're swimming out in the pool. Yeah. And it's going to leave you maybe a little exhausted. You need some recovery. You need some coffee to fuel your next week. A little pick-me-up. Exactly. And if you're going to do coffee, you might as well do it right. That's why we love Coffee Cult, because they source specialty grade coffee from all over the world. Now, if you don't know what that is, we're talking high end, the top 2% of coffees in the world. We're not talking about your store-bought coffees, not the stuff you get on Amazon that costs $3 a bag. That's not what we're talking about.
There's a reason why it costs $3 a bag.
Exactly. You probably don't want to know why it costs only $3 a bag. I promise you that. However, high-end coffee, gourmet coffee, sure, it's a little pricier, but the flavor profiles of these coffees are incredible. You have to try them. I say this on the show all the time, but if you drink these coffees without milk and sugar, and I know that's how most of America is made to drink their coffees. The Green Circle Company has done a great job of teaching people to buy $9 coffees.
They've been teaching you that caffeinated milk is the same thing as coffee.
Yes. No, like you drink these coffees black. Even if you don't like black coffee, you're going to taste these incredible flavor notes that is all natural. It is organic to the coffee. It is incredible how good this coffee is. And that's why we love Coffee Cult. They ethically source it. It is great. You got to go check it out. Coffeecult.com, coffee with a K, cult with a K, coffeecult.com. At checkout, use the code ISF25. Again, that code is ISF25. You'll get 15% off at the checkout.
Yeah.
It's a great deal, one of their best deals. So go and check it out. I promise you're going to love this coffee. It is great. It's really great.
So good.
I drink
so
it
good.
16 times a day.
Too much, but
And-
still so good.
I don't regret it. Coffeecult.com, ISF25 at checkout. We thank Coffee Cult for their support. All right, Brennan, let's talk about merchandise and
Swag,
t-shirts.
t-shirts.
And swag.
You're wearing one of our shirts right now.
I
It's not the
am.
new one, but it's still
not
one
the
of our
new one.
logos. Well,
Yeah,
that's
I'm-
actually one of our favorite
Yeah.
expressions, one of our favorite taglines
Yeah.
when it comes to movies.
Yeah, movies are my expensive form of therapy. Of course, inspired there by the good old Tim Burton quote.
Mhm.
I do love this one a lot. I wear this around all the time. We have a Film Score Junkie shirt that
Yeah.
I wore on our cruise when I went out to the pub. And I would go out to the pub on our cruise every single night. And I was trying to get the musician there to play movie music. It never worked, but I tried.
Did you tip well enough?
Yeah, I mean, of course,
Okay.
yeah, I tipped, tried. But, you know,
Maybe he didn't know anything.
it's very possible that that's what it is. I've gone on these cruises, God knows how many times by now. And every single time I've tried to get them to play Inside Llewyn Davis, and it's never worked. It's just never worked. And either they don't know it or they are just pandering to the rest of the crowd. Because if he did play Inside Llewyn Davis, it would probably just be a him and I thing. Like, I don't know if anyone else in the
yeah.
crowd would know. So,
Oh,
but you
gosh.
got to try.
Imagine
Yeah,
if
try.
just all of a sudden, please, Mr. Kennedy starts blaring while you're there.
I
at the
would
pub.
lose my mind. I would lose my mind. At any rate, Film Score Junkie, you can go and check that out. Oh, we have a Sinners t-shirt. I'm like Jesus because I love sinners. If you want to go and get that t-shirt as well. And one of my favorites, we have a brand new I Could Use a Boost t-shirt that I wore on the show last week. That is one of my favorite designs.
It might
yeah,
be
check
my
it out.
favorite design of yours. I really
Thank
think
you.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it turned out really, really great. I'm really proud of it. InSessionFilm.com/store or go to InSessionFilm.dashery.com, which is a subsidiary there of TeePublic who hosts all of our stuff. So InSessionFilm.dashery.com. If you go straight there, you'll see all of our official merch. You'll see all the designs available, different colors. We got all kinds of fun things there for you to go and check out. And if you get a t-shirt, it helps directly support the show, and all
Absolutely.
the money we get goes back into supporting the show here. So
Yeah.
please go and check out our merch. Again, that's InSessionFilm.dashery.com or on the website InSessionFilm.com/store. Either way, go get yourself a t-shirt, a mug, a sticker, however you want to support us. And we thank you for your support. All right, well, let's get into this. Maybe it'll go quicker than we anticipate, or at least I anticipated then. All right, what do you got at number 5?
All right. So my number 5, this is one that I don't think will be in your top 5, but I know you really like this movie. And so many of these movies that round out my top 10, almost all could circulate to be my number 5. It was sort of like a last minute ditch effort to find one that I think best fit this slot. And I do have quite the bit of passion for The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. So that is my number
Wow.
5.
Okay. Yeah, that being high on your list, that isn't too surprising because Brendan is always full of these outlier picks that a lot of us might not see coming.
I'm a zany individual, and this
Man.
movie is a very zany one, so it speaks to me in
Yeah.
that regard.
Yeah. And
We had a-
look,
yeah.
and sorry before you get into it, that's another example. I brought up Predator, Killer of Killers earlier in this conversation. That one maybe is an even better one. If the day the Earth blew up, the Looney Tunes movie,
Yeah.
for me, and I really like it a lot. Really like it a lot. I gave it 4 stars on Letterboxd. If that ends up in my top 20 of the year, we need to have a discussion about the state of cinema. Like it was not a good year.
I mean,
if that
I'll
is
say
the case.
this: if this ends up in my top 20 of the year, I'll say that's cool. That's cool.
But
But then again,
I'm being
kind of a-
cynical
I'm a-
about
yeah.
the overall state of the year. It's less about the quality of.
But
that
I'm also
movie.
I'm also a Looney Tunes guy. So this is something like many of us, we grew up watching and grew up being very entertained by, but maybe even me more so in some ways because this was my version of cartoons growing up. I always latched on to Porky Pig and Daffy Duck especially, and the fact that this is somehow the first ever fully animated Looney Tunes feature, I just find that so baffling, and I think that needs to be worth celebrating. I think we need to
and
celebrate
that's fair.
that.
Totally
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's giving it an edge in some ways. And also, I love that we have something like this that's aimed at children, but is still willing and daring to be this irreverent and this politically incorrect. So I find it really funny in that regard. And the fact that, like we talked about during our review for it, it is this commentary on Warner Brothers and the way Warner Brothers treats its properties. Churning out generic products that turn its chewers into zombies. This being a gum corporation as represented in the movie, but you can also say that about the movie industry. And the way that this movie was also handled by Warner Brothers kind of makes it one of the most meta experiences of the year. So there's a lot that's going on here, whether it was intentional or not, I don't know, but it's here for us to dissect as people who digest art. So I love that I'm able to read something like that in this movie that's aimed at children that still has some really sophisticated ideas on its mind.
Yeah.
And it also made me laugh quite heavily. It's one of the funnier movies of the year so far. So that's why it's high for me. I have it at number 5.
Yeah, I do agree with you. The meta component of it all is really great. I do have this at number 12 on my list currently.
Okay.
So it's just outside of my top 10. I do really like it a lot. Like I said, I give it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. It is really refreshing. There's something vibrant about it, refreshing to get a Looney Tunes movie in theaters, as you noted. And it's more sophisticated. It's more smart than it might be getting credit for, or at the very least what audiences might have expected going into it. But that I do love about it. And also it is really funny. It's a very, very funny movie. So
Yeah.
do really like it a lot. Again, I'm not trying to clown on that movie when I say if it doesn't end up in my top 20, it's
Yes, it's
bad
not
for
the
me.
kind of movie you might expect to see that high on a list like that. I get that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm hoping to see better movies. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm trying to say. But it is really good. It's a really, really good movie. I like it a lot. All right. My number 5 is arguably the surprise film of the year so far. And it is exactly why we have a category at the InSession Film Awards for Best Surprise Movie, because these are often some of the best experiences you have in a year. And it's why I love movies like EFIS, which is my number 5.
It's my number 4.
There you go. Start to cross over already. No, I absolutely love this movie. It is really great. It hit me in such a specific way. I don't play baseball. I'm not a huge baseball guy. I've noted before I play hockey, though. I'm on a beer league hockey team. And the way this film frames baseball, it does it in a specific way that is also vague enough that its spirit is applicable to other sports. And that is the beauty of it. It gets to have its cake and eat it too. So if you're a baseball nut, my goodness, you're going to absolutely love and eat this film up. But at the same time, its spirit is applicable to things like hockey, in the case for me, and the camaraderie we see on display, the passion, the love of the game, and how that comes through is blistering as well. I love it. I love how there's no traditional conflict here. It's simply all about these personalities, and there are varying personalities coming together to play this game. There's sentimental value. It is going to be the last game they ever play on this field. And we actually had a listener comment.
Oh, I love this.
That we didn't really bring up on the show, and I thought it was really clever. I think you did mention that the field was going to be demolished, not for a business, and that's the traditional trope, right?
Yeah, corporate America bad.
Corporate America coming in, corporate greed taking over. No, it's not that. In this film, they're building a school on top of this field. So you really don't have that angst getting in the way of the game that you
It adds-
normally would
yeah.
have in this movie.
It adds nuance. I think it's a great
Yeah.
point that comment made. We did, I think, acknowledge that it was a school that was taking over, or a school that was being built over this field. But we didn't really talk about the ramifications of that and how
Yeah.
a school is actually kind of a good thing, right?
Yeah.
So the
exactly.
fact that a
Yeah.
school is being built here, it kind of makes you think, well, are these men just really selfish in that regard? Like it adds some new layers to this. It's not a one-dimensional experience in that regard.
Well, and I think, at least for me, I think part of the poetry of it, the beauty of it, I never got the feeling that these guys were bitter that a school was being built as much as they were relishing in the sentimental emotion of, we love this field. This is just simply the last time we're going to get to play on it.
Yeah.
I think they understand, even though the film doesn't say this explicitly, but the performances and the way the characters are rendered, it suggests that they understand that a school being built there is what's best for that field. But that just gives this game all the more meaning. It's why they're willing to play into the night with no lights, with no umpire, and doing whatever they can to finish the game. Like it gives all of that more value. And that is the brilliance of the movie. And I love the way it goes about it. I mean, I got emotional. I got really emotional with this film.
It's a very spiritual feeling movie because it's not just a baseball movie. It's about the spirit of baseball, the spirit of the sport. So because it is about these men playing on this particular field in their small rural town for arguably the last time, the movie kind of feels like a eulogy, like this heavenly aura surrounds them. And by the time the movie reaches its back half, it becomes kind of haunting in a way. This is a movie that's in my top 5, as I noted. It is my number 4, so it's a nice little transition there. But out of all the movies in my top 5 right now, this is the one that's most likely going to climb the ranks. I have it at number 4 now, but I will admit I think I enjoy and personally like it more than some of the others I have maybe at number 3 and number 2. I'm just not quite ready to say that yet because the movies I have above it are such cinematic achievements that I think I have to honor them in that way because they're more top of mind given those surface level achievements that they're going for. But I can see a movie like Ephes rising the ranks for me, especially as we get closer to the end of the year. This is definitely one of my favorite films of the year regardless. Where it ranks, though, it could even go up. Could even go up from here.
Yeah. Do really love that a lot. I could see this rising the ranks for me as well. We'll see where it goes. I at the very least, I expect this film to be fighting for a top 10 spot, top 20 spot for sure.
Okay.
I really love it a lot. I guess I'll move on to my number 4.
Yeah, because that was my number 4. So I guess that qualifies as my my talking point there.
Yeah. Unless there's anything else you want to add before I move on real quick.
Good movie.
Good movie. All right. My number 4 is Rangano Neoni's On Becoming a Guinea Fowl.
Okay. It's my number 9.
Deeply, deeply love this film. It is a movie about the moral and emotional costs of being vocal in a culture that rewards silence, which is what makes the title of the film symbolically powerful. It makes the images that we see at the end of the film so incredibly visceral. The symbolism behind that in this film, not subtle. I'm glad that it's not subtle. This is one of those films that needs to be as loud as possible, and it makes it all the more rewarding and poignant in the end. And for context, guinea fowls are social birds. They are known for their loud screams when they sense predators nearby. And how that, through its symbolism, through its imagery, narrative storytelling, how that idea comes alive in this film is really incredible, because you have these characters. We come to find out that these young women have been abused for years, for decades, for centuries, and the culture that they live in has muted that abuse for the longest time. So becoming a guinea fowl, it takes a lot of courage and a lot of risk. And how the central character of this film, Shula, how the male characters in her life, including her own father, how they react to her throughout this film. It is heartbreaking. It's disturbing. But that's what makes the film one of the more important movies of the year. It's really great. I love how it is shot. The cinematography here is really great. The performances are fantastic. It is an incredibly well-directed movie. I believe this was a sophomore effort, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I
from
believe it
Leone.
was. I haven't seen the debut film from Rangano Nioni, but this is definitely something that's going to get me interested in their work.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Because the framing and composition in the film is incredible. Like it truly is phenomenal. It's a little bit of All We Imagine as Light in some ways. When I think about some of the shots here, it's not going to be a movie that stuns with its evocative imagery like we see in All We Imagine as Light or a Terrence Malick movie. It's the sophistication. It's more After Sun and the sophistication of the framing and how that helps tell this story.
Yeah.
There are a couple shots here that just blew me away. Just absolutely blew me away. So I think it's one of the best directed movies of the year. It's one of the most important movies of the year. I love it a lot. It is my number 4.
Yeah, like I said, it's my number 9, so still my top 10. Definitely one of my honorable mentions for the context of this exercise. And what I love about it, too, is that it's one of those movies that utilizes cultural specifics to tell something that is anything but culturally specific.
Yeah.
It's very universal, and this is as universal as it gets. And I love when movies do that. This is a great example of that as well.
For sure. All right. My number 4, Unbecoming a Guinea Fowl. Number 3, what do you got at number 3?
Number 3, okay. My number 3 and number 2 are kind of interchangeable. And coincidentally, my numbers 3 and number 2, I think are the 2 consensus films as being the best of the year. They're the 2 technical achievements of the year. And I think if you were to poll most critics, most general audiences, a lot of them are going to have these 2 films probably battling the top spot. So it's really interchangeable. I can go either way. But at this point right now, my number 3 is Sinners, the Ryan Coogler film.
Okay. Yep. My number 2.
Yeah. Number 2. Okay. So then I think I know what your number 3 is, but I can't wait to hear what that is. But let's talk about Sinners for a little bit.
Okay. Let's do it.
So obviously a lot of people are talking about its genre components, the vampire components specifically, which are a lot of fun for sure. But the thing that really stuck out for me is how I think this joins the ranks of movies like Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And there's a movie called Crossroads from the 80s by Walter Hill that I think is really underrated. But these are all movies about blues music, classic blues music. And I think Sinners joins those ranks as being among the best movies about blues ever made. I feel like Ryan Coogler is utilizing vampire lore to illustrate really the white man's response to black art, both the cultural togetherness of it all and the evilness that it can also create. And there's that interesting dichotomy that makes it very horrifying at times. The film is not just about how Delta blues formulated and shaped all music we listen to today, but how it's about how we consume black art. Do we continue to let it wonderfully evolve, or do we suck its lifeblood from our own gains until it becomes ageless and stagnant? That's what I think the movie is more or less getting at. And I went into this movie not really knowing how much of a music film it actually was going to be. I go on the IMDb page pretty regularly, hoping that someone would update its genre classifiers to include music in there, because I think this is a music movie. I don't know if I would necessarily say it's primarily a music movie, but I think it's just as much a movie about music as it is about vampires. I really think there's a merriment there for sure. And I love that this is a movie that's celebrating that early that early subset of music that would then be really the birthplace of the music we listen to today, and the references to Robert Johnson and Muddy Waters and Buddy Guy, like they will never be forgotten, and that's all over this movie. So that's the thing that I really latched onto, and I think it's quite great.
Yeah, I think this is one of the best films of the decade to this point. The films I have at number 2 and 1, and obviously I have this at number 2, I do not foresee, as great as I hope the back half of the year to be, there is very little chance that these films will drop outside of my top 5. I do think these are two of the best films of the decade, including Coogler's Sinners here, for all the reasons you're talking about. I mean, it's this incredibly thoughtful and provocative exploration of assimilation, the allure and consequences of cultural appropriation, and the power of music as a way of healing and bringing communities together. The blues as a cipher for those ideas here are incredibly poignant, given the history of the genre and how it functions as a mean of not only a means of expression, but connecting spiritually as well, as this film goes on to depict, which is why the barn burning sequence is so brilliant. One of the best scenes of the decade so far, as it taps into all of those ideas in this really incredibly inventive, intuitive way. You've never really seen a scene like that before in cinema. It is incredible. And I do love how that taps into vampiric lore as it relates to the Remick character and Irish culture, and how that becomes a play here as well, which is why I agree with you. This is easily as much about music as it is assimilation and the consequences of appropriation. All of that is here. It's the fusion of all of those things, and how Coogler goes on to depict not just blues and how these characters react to that, but on the flip side of that, Rennick and the Irish music that we go on to see here, how that becomes its own allure. I just need to stop talking. I'm just going to end up talking about Sinners all the time.
We're just going to review it all over again.
Just going to review it all over again. I love this movie so much. And it's also great as a genre exercise. If I just look at it as a vampire film, I think there's a lot of fun to be had here as well.
And it was a big hit. A movie like this was a big hit. This is a huge saving grace for those of us that not just clamor for original films, but want movies like this to succeed. Like we want this to be the new precedent.
Exactly. That is one of the best things about the narrative of Sinners, is that it was this huge cultural sensation. And absolutely want more of that.
I think it'll be an Oscar player. I think it will be.
I hope so. I certainly do hope so. It is easily one of the best films of the year for sure. So Sinners is my number 2.
So your number 2, that was my number 3. So I guess we'll go to your number 3 next.
My number 3, you know what? As of a few weeks ago, I don't know where this film sat for me, but I can't stop thinking about it. I do really love it a lot. My number 3 is David Cronenberg's The Shrouds.
Okay, that is a huge surprise. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we are not going to have 4 crossover then.
Nope. And yeah, I just keep thinking about this movie, and I love its little sophistications. Yeah. I love how personal this film is. And maybe it's because I keep thinking about it in the same way I thought of Spielberg and The Fabelmans, how personal that was. This is Cronenberg's version of that, right? This is inspired by his own grief over the loss of his wife. So it's this cathartic way of exploring the impacts of technology and the mourning process and the complexity of human volatility that comes as a result. And the way he wraps that into these elements of, this socio-political, capitalistic, conspiratorial mystery, I just had a lot of fun with. I thought it was really, really great. And it has these wonderful sleight of hands throughout the film, including its ending. And
I love that ending so much.
On this mysterious, ambiguous note that might leave a lot of people unsatisfied or disappointed or wanting more. And I also felt those things, but that's what I loved about it. Because I think it speaks to a little bit of how grief, maybe sometimes there isn't closure.
Yeah.
Maybe you are left a little bit wandering, a little bit lost, trying to figure out what your next move is. I think that's a little bit of what Cronenberg is going for there. And I just love how he depicts grief as this digital spectacle. It's kind of gnarly. It's a little bit, maybe there's another film we'll talk about in this conversation in terms of grotesque imagery as this poignant, emotional device. I do
Mhm.
love that about the Shrouds as well. And I think it's handled really well visually speaking. I think it's really great. So yeah, I kept thinking about this film a lot.
It's
I really, really love it.
that final image I still can't shake. And
Can't
it
shake.
is perhaps the thing that keeps me going back to this movie. I have this at number 12 right now, but this is another one of those that I know is probably going to rise the ranks as I keep sitting with it even further. If there's any theme that you could take away from this, there are many. The one that I keep latching onto is the miscalculation of treating death as an equation. We talked
Yeah.
about that pretty heavily during our review of it.
Yeah.
The other thing about this movie too is just how funny it is. It's a very
Yeah, it is
droll.
funny.
It's
Yeah.
it's like the dry humor here is really interesting. I can't say I've seen a movie do it in this way in quite some time. So it
Uh-huh.
makes for one of the most unique experiences of the year, but also one of David Cronenberg's most unique movies. I think that makes it a really cool relic of a film that I know I'm going to like more as time goes on.
Yeah, I've really loved it. This film is somewhat quintessential to what we were talking about last week on the show with Best of the Decade and our changing taste over the last 5 to 10 years. Because I do think The Shrouds is one of those movies that a decade ago I would have deeply respected and appreciated as a work of art, but it wouldn't have been this high on my list. I would have
Yeah.
gone for the emotional films.
Kind of like how Under the Skin was at the time.
Yeah, a little bit like that for sure.
Yeah.
And I'll just give this away. Thunderbolts, for example, that's number 9 on my list. A decade ago, that probably would be sitting here at 3 or 4 because of the emotional response that I had to it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm kind of in the same way. I have that at number 8, but I think I'm with you. I would have probably latched on to a different element of that because it was more immediate, right? The
Yeah.
Shrouds is not asking for immediacy.
No, it's not. But as I noted last week on the show, there's something about, again, the sophistication, the artistic intelligence, or sophistication of this film, the character, how he devolves over the course of the film, the cinematography, its weird mysteries, its eccentricities. I have started to, at the very least, I don't want to say I want to gravitate toward that more than emotion because that's not true, but
Sure.
they have balanced the scales.
They
I would
become more
say.
intertwined in a way.
Yeah.
So if you ever
absolutely.
see a movie that hits on the emotional and the intellectual just as well, then you're basically dealing with a masterpiece at this point.
Which is what I'll get to with my number 1. And I always go to something like The Tree of Life as a
Yeah.
great example of that. I weep like a baby when watching that film, and I also think it's one of the most intelligently crafted, smartly written, sharply toned movies I've ever seen. Like it has it all. Like the artistic integrity is there, and it's also an emotional wallop. So
I
yeah, like
think we have the same number 1 then. But we'll get to that in
okay.
just a moment.
All right, we'll get to that soon.
So, okay, so that was your number 3, The Shrouds.
The Shrouds is my number 3. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we'll get to my number 2. I know you you revealed that number 2 was Sinners
Sinners
for
is
you.
me. Yeah. Sinners
Yeah,
for
and
me.
I had that at number 3. So my number 2, I'm actually surprised this is probably not in your top 5 then. My number 2 is Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag.
I have this at 8 on my list.
Wow. Okay. I think this is perhaps the most efficient film of the year. And I think when it comes to efficiency, the merriment between director and screenwriter, this is one of the best examples that I think we can cite as of the past few years of being so successful in that merriment there. What I love so much about this movie is the irony of its setting. As a movie about loyalty for your spouse in a world and in a place where loyalty is the thing your job is to question the most. I love that whole backdrop for it. I think the movie is incredibly sexy, as people have been saying, but it's also very romantic. I think the central romance is very effective in that regard because of that deconstruction of loyalty in a spy movie setting. On top of that, it's a movie that features a prior James Bond. It features an
Yeah.
actor who auditioned for James Bond. It features an actress who was in James Bond.
And it features the next James Bond. This is how we reveal it to the world.
Well, I was going to say, then you might not be wrong. You might not be wrong, but I was going to say it features an actor who has been theorized as a potential new James Bond. But who knows? Maybe Regé-Jean Page will actually be the new James Bond.
Yeah, you never know.
So basically, this is one of the best James Bond films, is what I'm trying to say. But I love how it serves as a deconstruction of that while also participating in that. Certainly one of Soderbergh's most efficient films in years. And I find it very enjoyable.
Yeah, I love this as well. I will admit that my 6 through 10 can be a little bit interchangeable.
Okay.
So I have this at 8 currently. It could also be sitting at 6 or 7. I do really love it a lot. I think it's great. I think it is Soderbergh at the top of his game. I agree. I love the writing here. I love the little mysteries, the little sleight of hands that we see throughout the narrative. It is such a sleek and intuitive film in terms of its storytelling and how it uses performance to help amplify that sleight of hand and some of those ambiguities that we do see throughout the film. It's such a really fun movie to watch. I deeply, deeply love it as well. So yeah, still top 10 for me at the current moment. It's been a good year for Soderbergh because I also have Presence at number 10 on my list. So I have that two in my top 10.
Yeah, I have Black Bag at number 2, like I just said. I have Presence at number 7 right now.
Okay.
But I was almost tempted to put them both back to back just to say it's been the year of Soderbergh.
Yeah,
apparently he might have a third film coming out this year.
Which is funny because I don't know if you remember this, but I mentioned this all the way back in January.
You did.
When we did our yearly preview show. We knew that we were getting Presents and Black Bag early. And I said, well, hold on. There's a third film coming out. I think at the time it was titled The Christophers. I don't know if that's still the same. It might change.
I think that's still the working title. I'm not sure.
Okay. And I was like, we might get a third. We might get the trifecta, the Soderbergh trifecta. And lo and behold, what was that, last week? We got that news.
Apparently it might be ready.
It might be coming down because I think it is. I think it's going to premiere it's at least going to premiere at a festival, whether it gets an actual theatrical release and distribution.
Oh gosh, I hope it doesn't just get released in January or February that we have to qualify as a 2026 film.
I want the trifecta. Please be a fall release. I do love that we went from, oh, I'm retiring to I'm now making 3 movies.
3 movies in a year.
Incredible. No one likes Steven Soderbergh. I love him. It has been the year of Soderbergh. No, I do agree. It has been.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had this in your top 5. I don't blame anyone for having a Soderbergh in their top 5.
And like I said, I feel like most people in our critic circle, I feel like it's Sinners and Black Bag. Those 2 movies tend to be the biggest consensus of the favorites of the year. I feel like, at least based on those that I follow and those that I listen to more attentively, it might be different in your algorithm, I guess. I'm not really sure. But I feel like those are the 2 that often get cited the most by my fellow critic friends that are, trying to put their favorite films of the year together.
Yeah, I mean, Sinners, absolutely. Unquestioned.
That one more so, for sure.
That's probably going to be number 1 for most people, and I don't blame them at all. If it's not for the film we're about to talk about, Sinners easily would have been my number 1. Easily, hands down.
Well, the film we're about to talk about, I know has been polarizing for some people.
Yeah, this one is divisive. A lot of people will disagree with us on this, and that's fine.
Totally fine. Yeah. So I know where you're going with this one.
Yeah,
we definitely have the same number 1 then.
Yeah, I would think so. Go ahead, review.
What? Little Danny Boyle, little Alex Garland. Yeah. Little 28 years later.
Yeah.
We just had a great conversation with our friend Diego Crespo on this. It's a very recent review, so a lot of what we say here might be pretty repetitive to what we just talked about there. I don't think we need to go into those reasons once again. All I'll say is this. I could see myself calling this Danny Boyle's best film. I can see myself getting to that point. I will also say, as much as difficult as it was when putting this list together for 2025, there was one outlier that was just not particularly close for me. This was always going to be my number one. This was always going to be. It wasn't close. This could end up still being my number one when we get to the end of the year. Like, that's how passionate I am about it. I've talked about this before, JD. There have been many instances this year where I came out of a movie and my first reaction was, oh, that was quite good. And then I would start to sour on it, where like I found myself kind of stuck in an emotional high, and it just didn't last.
Yeah.
With regard to 28 years later, my first reaction leaving the theater was, and I didn't say this during our review because I didn't want to get too hyperbolic too soon.
Okay.
My first thought was, this is some best of the decade level shit.
Yeah.
And I'm still thinking that.
Yeah.
I think the movie is that good. I might be ready to put this at 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
Now, I'm already there. I
Okay.
said this in the review. We talked about this earlier or I guess by the time you're listening to this, it would have been more so last week. However, we were a little late to this because the weekend it came out, I had to go on my family vacation, and we were on a cruise. So I was mostly offline. I didn't even have access to the internet or my email or text messages, but I did see this the day before we left. And I joked on the review that the entire time on the cruise, all I could think about was this movie.
Yeah.
Acting like a rage virus, I just wanted to go throughout the boat and find someone and grab them by the collar and be like, please go watch Danny Boyle's new film. It's incredible. Which is ironic, I guess, because this film has been divisive.
Yeah.
If I did that, a lot of people might be mad at me. They might be angry that I told them to go see this movie.
It takes some swings by the end, some very tonal shifts for sure. And it's not going to work for everybody. But you and I are part of a certain camp that likes movies that take swings like that. Even if it doesn't always work. Like, we appreciate that.
I just deeply, deeply love this movie. And I did say in that conversation with Diego that I'm willing to go that far. I think this is Danny Boyle's masterpiece. I think this is his best movie. It is the best of the year. I do really love Sinners, obviously, as we just talked about. It would have easily been my number one. I think that film is quite great. I'm perhaps maybe a little closer on those two than you. But there is something about the swings of 28 years later. There's something about those final sequences at the end of the film that are so emotionally engrossing. This vestige to remind everybody that these were real people. And I think what's great about that vestige is that it's bone, and it's a reminder not just that these were people, but we don't know if they were human or zombie.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Really interesting.
It's really interesting. For Kelson, it was just a way to grieve and a way to remind the world that regardless of whether you're alive or whether you're infected by the rage virus, we were all born the same. And there's something about the emotional profundity of that, coupled with how bizarre and grotesque the imagery is.
Yeah.
That I really love. Like, Spike, spoiler alerts here for 28 years later, I guess. But it's all over the posters. So you might even have seen it as well. But like that image of Spike taking those skulls and adding them onto the vestige. Again, it is a little bit of a taboo image, but the emotion underneath, it's something we've never really seen before in a movie. And it's so striking. I love it so much.
This is going to stay in my top 5 by the time we get to the end of the year.
100%.
I can almost guarantee that.
Yeah, it would take an act of God for this and Sinners to drop out of the 5. It's just not going to happen. I mean, when we get to the end of the year, those two will be in my 5.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
What a movie.
I do.
What a movie.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to honorable mentions. I've more or less revealed my 6 through 10, but
yeah.
And you want to reveal the rest of your top 10 and the other movies you want to mention?
Sure. I already revealed that at least I think I revealed that Presence is my number 7 when we talked about Steven Soderbergh having quite the year so far.
Yeah.
Thunderbolts I already revealed as my number 8, and when you had On Becoming a Guinea Fowl in your top 5, I revealed that it was my number 9. So that rounds out part of my top 10 thus far. I'll say this, my number 10 is Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza's Warfare. My number 6, it might not really be my number 6. If anything, it's kind of a placeholder because the movie is still a massive head scratch for me that I cannot stop thinking about, and that is Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. I can't stop thinking about it. I don't know if it's good or bad. I can't stop thinking about this weird thing. So I have it there simply because I keep scratching my head over it. It's a weird movie. But that rounds out my top 10, even if it might not be the truest of top 10s, just given my reaction to something like The Final Reckoning.
Okay, fair enough, I guess. I can say definitively that film is not in my top 10 or my top 20.
I know that, yeah.
I think that film takes a lot of swings and it misses often.
I keep thinking about what that movie might potentially be doing. I'm just not ready to admit that I fully buy into that idea of what it could be doing.
Yeah,
but
at this point, I don't. It's going to take time if I do.
Well, the thing is with this movie and why I keep thinking about it is that if I ever get to a point where I fully buy into whatever meta commentary it's going for, I could see a world where I say it's a top 3 Mission Impossible film. Like I could see that potentially happening if I ever buy into that. I just don't know if I buy into that. I could watch it again and think, oh, I was full of shit. There's no way it's going for that. So it's still kind of a head scratch.
I come around on it in this way. If anything, I might feel about it the way I feel about Mission Impossible 2, a film that I have come around on. But I do think there is a ceiling to that because at a certain point, I just don't think Mission Impossible 2 is as good as a movie as some of the others in that franchise.
Sure.
And I will always feel about that with The Final Reckoning. Even if I come around to some of its meta commentary, I cannot ignore its extremely messy narrative, its bad editing, and bad storytelling. Like there's just a lot to that film and how underwhelming it is as a movie that even if the commentary becomes something great, there's a ceiling there that
That's fair. And that's fair.
It'll never overcome that.
It did make me appreciate Dead Reckoning more, which I thought was impossible.
Pun intended, I guess.
I didn't mean to do that, but I guess I should have.
It was Mission Impossible, and it achieved it.
It achieved, yeah. I chose to accept that.
You know what? Now that I might agree with. I was pretty mixed on Dead Reckoning, and Final Reckoning does not at all address any of the questions and reservations I had for Dead Reckoning. But I don't think it's as bad as Final Reckoning. So, like, at least it's more of a movie there.
It kind of depends on what my mood is, I guess, because on one hand, I've now learned to appreciate Dead Reckoning more as kind of this weird, zany techno thriller of sorts. And I think it actually has a good sense of escalation as a action movie specifically. But I guess it also depends on, am I more willing to forgive Dead Reckoning because it at least set up some pretty intriguing things that I was hoping to see get paid off well that don't get paid off well in Final Reckoning? Or do I appreciate Final Reckoning more for just simply disregarding the things that weren't going to ever work? It kind of becomes like one of those things, like what spectrum do I end up falling on? And I don't know what spectrum I'm on yet, but as much as I think Fallout is really the true emotional conclusion to the Mission Impossible series, these two Reckoning films are just so weird that I'm starting to appreciate them a little bit more.
Okay. I'm glad that you're there. Weird. I like weird. I love weird. I deeply cherish weird. I tend to go for weird. It's why I love The Shrouds. And why it's my number 3.
Different kind of weird, but yeah, to your point, I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, but weird again only goes so far if there's other things that follow to give credence to weird.
Sure.
And my take on the Reckoning films is that its weirdness is mostly a result of incompetence.
That's
not
fair.
artistry.
And I think that's fair because I don't know what was done deliberately and what wasn't, if anything. I just don't know. So
Yeah.
having it at number 6, that's a long-winded way of me saying I have it at number 6 because it's a place holding head scratcher. Is basically what that is.
So it could stay there or drop out of the top 30, you're saying?
It could basically end up being in my top 3, or it could end up being like at number 40 out of 50 or something.
Yeah. Okay.
But at the same time, the fact I have it so highly right now simply because I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. I just don't know if that's been for better or for worse.
Okay. Totally fair. I have had the exact opposite experience. I haven't thought about that movie a single time since we reviewed it.
I love that.
Anyway,
what? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
The last thing I'll say about it, and that's disappointing to me because as we discussed earlier, there's been so much disappointment in films that I've liked, not loved. There's been plenty of opportunity for me to go back to that film to wrestle with it, and I just haven't cared. That to me is what's so frustrating, perhaps, especially on the heels of this conversation.
I guess that's the thing because I've only seen it once, but I'm actually really excited to watch it again.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of that Mad Max Fury Road 2015 thing with me. I do think that to be fair to the film, I am going to have to give it another go. And look, I was not low on Fury Road. I just had a few issues.
No, I think I
really liked it at the time.
I think I remember you said like something like the word masterpiece being thrown around a lot and you just couldn't quite get there.
Yeah, I was like, that's a little overblown. When we reviewed it, that's how I felt anyway.
Yeah.
But I revisited that film again at the end of the year, had a very different experience at home. And I think it ended up initially at like number 5 on my list for that year. Like I really came around on it after that second watch. I do think I need to give Final Reckoning a second watch for similar reasons. But I'm much more dubious this time around.
Yeah, I don't blame you for that.
I'm much lower on
Final Reckoning than you were on Fury Road when you
Fury
first.
Road.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, just to reiterate my 6 through 10, I've noted 4 of these 5. Presents I have at 10, Thunderbolts at 9, Black Bag at 8. Well, I lied. 3 of them were brought up in this conversation. I have The Phoenician Scheme, Wes Anderson, at number 7.
Okay.
And then my number 6 is a film that we really haven't talked about here on the show. I would love to give this film a discussion at some point, perhaps in some sort of catch-up episode. It is the film Vietnam. I have that at number 6. I really love this film a lot.
Okay.
It is a film that I really cannot recommend to anybody, but it is a JD movie through and through.
Means I'll probably like it.
Extremely stoic. It is quiet. It is reflective. It is very, very internalized, but it's also this gorgeous, poignant examination of death and loss and the importance of closure. And how often have I talked about that on this show over the years? That's what I love about that film. We find these characters stuck between the past and struggling to move on after so much devastation that people in Vietnam have experienced as a result of the war, of course, without any tangible way to say goodbye to those people. So many people that had died in the Vietnam War, bodies were never recovered. There's lots of missing, lots of dead. And this is a film that finds characters kind of in this purgatory between the present, trying to live in the present, but also finding ways to continue to live despite not having closure, seeking that closure, why that is important. And despite its quiet reflectiveness, there are a few moments in that film that are weird, for the lack of a better term, to our debate there a moment ago. But in this case, I think its eccentricities, again, reflective, but still eccentric, is born out of artistry. It is born out of that thematic undercurrent. and how we, where we find these characters and what they're searching for.
It
it's really great.
sounds like I'm gonna like it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if you loved it or at least appreciated it on some level. I really, really liked it a lot. I have it at number 6 for now.
Okay.
Maybe also as a placeholder, very different than Final Reckoning.
Very different kind of placeholder. Yeah.
Very different placeholder because I'm still really fresh on this. I only saw this a few weeks ago, and it's one of those movies you really do need to sit on and kind of think about because, well, for a couple of reasons. It is internalized. It's a film that's going to ask you to participate, to offer up interpretation, and also there's some cultural elements that may require you to do extra homework to understand context, which I don't think is challenging, but you might have to do some extra work unless you're really familiar with Vietnam culture and history.
Gotcha.
Which a lot of it I think is easily accessible, even if you don't know all the details. A little bit of what we were talking about with 28 Years Later. You might not understand all of the British references, but you understand it a little bit. Maybe you have to research Jimmy Savile to understand the ending of that film. A little bit of that here with Vietnam as well.
Okay.
But worth doing the homework because there's some really incredible things here as far as the war, the devastation it caused, and how it connects to people in the present. And by the present, I really mean the 1990s. This is a film that takes place in the 90s. So it's in the future, but you're not too far removed from the Vietnam War, not like we are now, where it's more like 50 years ago. So it's fresh enough still. Like those wounds are still quite raw, and it makes these characters vulnerable in a really interesting way. So
I look forward to checking it out soon.
Yeah, good stuff. So that I have at number 6.
Okay.
Also, just want to note, Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, high honorable mention for me.
Very good movie. Definitely
Really
somewhere in my
well.
top 20 right now.
I have it at 11. It's 11 on my list.
Where do I have it? I have it at 19.
Okay.
A few others I did want to highlight just to round out a few that may have been in my top 20 at the time, because there were a lot of very good movies here. Materialists, Celine Song's Materialists, I would have had around number 11. I think I mentioned The Shrouds was my number 12, so it just missed my top 10. Mickey 17, also somewhere in my top 15.
Okay.
The Ballad of Wallace Island, which I know you haven't had a chance to see yet, but I think it's a very charming film. Predator, Killer of Killers is up there too. Sly Lives, the documentary Sly Lives, which I'm only liking more after the unfortunate passing of Sly Stone following that movie, which actually adds an unfortunate context to it that makes the movie sadly a bit more effective. I also have The Phoenician Scheme pretty high there too. This has been a year where we've gotten a lot of horror thrillers as well. And I think the best of them, well, I mean, aside from 28 Years Later and Sinners, which we already talked about, but the best of them as far as functioning as cheap, schlocky genre exercises. Remember that movie Drop that came out earlier in the year?
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty effective. I thought it was actually very effective.
Was it as tropey as it looked in the trailers?
Yes.
Okay.
But it does two things right that makes it a more engaging experience than some of its other counterparts.
Gotcha.
It's kind of similar to Heart Eyes, where it actually
they reveal that she's James Bond.
Yes, they reveal that she's James Bond. She is the new James Bond.
Okay. I know.
But seriously, it's similar to Heart Eyes. Remember we talked about Heart Eyes as being a very effective date movie, but not necessarily a great horror thriller.
Yeah.
Drop is kind of similar in that regard, but it's more effective at both of those things. It's as a thriller, it's fine, but it does a great job, like kind of playing up the mystery of it. I wouldn't say it's unpredictable, but it does allow you as a viewer to sort of play the part as to who's pulling the strings, like you're watching a game of Clue in a way.
Yeah.
So it's pretty effective in that regard. But as a first date movie, the two leads have amazing chemistry.
Oh, nice.
So that's what makes it effective.
Yeah, that's a premise like that. It is wholly reliant on that. So
yeah.
Okay, so then the question begs: does she kill the date? Does she kill her date? What happens?
Oh, you want to know? You want to know?
No, it's fine. I'm sure I'll watch it at some point.
I just don't want to spoil it for our listeners if they haven't seen it yet.
Okay. Anything else?
One of Them Days. Really, really
yeah,
fun movie. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It's really, really
I
fun.
have not seen that one yet. No, that is a blind spot for me as well.
Okay.
I've mostly noted to some degree the rest of my honorable mentions. I will say Mickey 17, though, that's in my top 15. Materialist also in my top 15. The documentary Deaf Presidents Now is really good. I do encourage people to check that out if they haven't. I believe it is on Apple. I have Freaky Tales in that kind of 16 through 20. I think that's a fun little genre exercise as well. And The Life of Chuck Warfare kind of in that 16 through 20 as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Those movies I do not expect to be in my top 30 anywhere by the end of the year. That's just kind of where I'm at now. I do like those movies. Again, don't love them. Although Deaf Presidents Now, I do think is one of the best documentaries of the year so far. That and Slightly
Okay.
I would recommend both of those for sure. So that's where I'm at. Again, that 11 through 20, I don't love comparatively to other years at this point in the year. Still some really good movies there, though, for sure, that I really enjoyed. This top 5, though, again, will be heavy contenders at the end of the year.
So I guess
it certainly stacks up with a lot of others at this point.
It is a very top-heavy year then.
It is. It is. Yeah. I again, the narrative of the year is as great as this top 10 is, and I'm in love with the top 10. There's equally another 10 at the bottom that rank heavier than a lot of other years in that regard for me. So we'll see. But I'm not going to focus on those because we're here to celebrate. We're here to celebrate.
Movies are good. Movies are good.
Still, movies are good. I'm ready for 2025 to really catch fire. And I am expecting that. I think at the end of this year, we'll look back at this and go, okay, the mid-year was fine, but my God, it took off in the back half of the year. I think that's what's going to happen here.
Yep.
Okay, with all of that said, we'll go ahead and wind down for this episode. Of course, we would love to know your top 5. Leave a comment below, or you can hit us up on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky. You can always email us InSessionFilm@gmail.com. We only have one review this week. It'll be Jurassic World Rebirth, after having a pretty heavy week last week with 3 reviews, Women in Session, the main show, of course. We decided we're going to keep it a little light this week, but there will be Women in Session at the end of the week, so you can be on the lookout for that as well. And Dave and crew, all the writers, will keep doing great stuff at InSessionFilm.com. Please go and check out all of their wonderful, wonderful writing there. Thanks to all of our Patreon VIP subscribers. Patreon.com/InSessionFilm if you want to sign up at Patreon, Apple Podcast subscriptions, YouTube membership. If you become a VIP, it really helps out support the show, and you get access to all of our bonus content. We did have some bonus content come out last week, so you can go and give that a go as well. With that said, Brendan is heading off to vacation as this episode is live.
North Carolina, baby.
Somewhere in the mountains of North Carolina.
Not the mountains, the beach. Wrightsville Beach.
In the mountains. In the mountains, the beach of the mountains.
I don't think beaches work that way.
No, they don't. Well, have fun on the... I have a beach. Why don't you come down here? And I have a beach 10, 15 minutes away from me.
I told you this. We go to Wrightsville Beach every year. That's where my wife went to college, UNC Wilmington.
Well, Fort Lauderdale Beach can be her new college. We can pretend.
Look, I'll make a trip to see you at some point, but it won't be on this vacation.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just saying, if beaches are your guys' thing, we have lots of them. I don't go very often, but I will make an exception for you guys.
We've talked about that. We want to go to Florida at some point soon. We just haven't had the time for that, and this is the family destination, so we always do this. So if we could do both in 1 year, we'll certainly let you know that you'll be the second destination. You
should, because I turned 40 this year.
I know, you keep talking about that.
I'm not using that as a way to manipulate you, but I'm also using that as a way to manipulate you.
Well, I wouldn't expect any less of you.
I'm just saying, you only turned 40 once. Just throwing that out there.
I don't know. I think you can turn 40 multiple times. It's a
Some
mental
people probably
thing.
think- yeah,
Age is not
exactly.
even a number. Age doesn't.
Yeah.
It's how you
Yeah.
feel. That's what your age is.
Fun fact: Tom Cruise, 42.
Oh
He's
yeah,
only 42 years old.
Yeah, 60 something my ass.
Exactly. Okay, well, have fun, future Brendan,
Thanks.
on the beach, wherever you are. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time on the InSession Film Podcast.